Hello everyone and welcome back to Prestige Reef. Today we get to take the next step of owning a reef tank, keeping corals. Before we get to that however, I promise you that I'd be honest with you and keep you up to date with everything that's going on with the tank. Well, although the last video appears that I may have avoided the diatom bloom, about 2 days after I posted it, that diatom bloom came back. The reason it's important to share this is because that ugly phase is a completely normal part of owning a reef tank. We have to realise that we're trying to recreate a small piece of the ocean in a very unnatural environment of a house, and some parts of owning a reef tank just can't be avoided. Am I worried? Not even remotely. My nutrient levels are low, I have a strong varied flow, I'm using RO water with a TDS of 0, therefore no additional silicates are entering the tank. This part of the process can be painful to live through, but given time and the fact that there isn't anything to continue to fuel them, the diatoms will disappear on their own. Until then, at the moment they're just an eyesore. Anyway, let's get back to the part of the video you all really want to hear about: corals. As this is a brand new tank, my biggest focus is going to be on growth, as I want to get this tank looking like a mature reef as quickly as possible. After completing Red Sea's recipe of how to cycle a tank, they then offer 4 different recipes on how to maintain your tank going forward. These are mixed reef, SPS dominant, ultra low nutrient, and fish only. Due to the type of corals I plan to keep, and from looking at where they say to maintain each of the key parameters, I felt that the mixed reef recipe should help me achieve my goal the fastest, while keeping a range of different corals happy. Therefore this is the recipe I'll be following. Higher, balanced levels of calcium, alkalinity and magnesium means that your corals will have to invest less energy gathering these essential building blocks, and can focus their energy on growth. With the target parameters decided, the next biggest thing is coral placement, and this can be a tricky one, as every single tank and to some extent every single coral is different. What I mean by this is just because you have the same tank, lights and power heads as someone else, doesn't mean your different water quality won't affect light penetration or aquascape affect flow. For this reason, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to coral placement, but you will have a higher success rate if you decide what corals you want to keep from the beginning. In the wild, the corals we keep are often kept nowhere near each other, in entirely different environments, therefore focusing your tank on one type of coral, such as SPS or LPS, can make your life much easier, as you aren't trying to cater for everything with a mixed reef. Generally speaking, and I mean very generally, SPS corals prefer higher light and flow, so they should be at the top of the tank, with LPS and soft corals in the medium range. The reason I say generally is because I've had some SPS corals which do much better at the base of the tank, and some soft corals which love to be blasted with a strong current. If a mixed reef is what you desire, then grouping certain types of corals in specific areas is the best way to achieve this. The chances are, if one type is happy in that area, the rest will be as well. It isn't just the coral's basic needs which need to be taken into consideration though. Growth pattern and rate, or if it's an invasive species, is always a big one for me, as one of the most common issues that experienced reefers face is corals fighting each other or shading each other out. Not providing enough room was one of my biggest issues that I had with my other tank, to the point where I've now let corals do their own thing for a while, and they've created an interwoven fortress of spikes which are shading everything at the base of the tank. The same applies even more so to corals with long, stinging polyps such as Euphyllia, although a neat trick with them is to place them in an area where the flow is blowing their polyps away from their neighbours. Another neat trick is learning which areas of your tank food starts to settle in, and then placing corals in these areas which like to be fed. Not only does it reduce your cleanup, but it also means you won't need to target feed them. Finally, and probably the least important from the coral's perspective, but one of the most important from ours, is coloration. Placing corals that have contrasting colours near each other can really give your tank that extra edge, to make something really special. And as I have 4 different types of Acropora digitata, I look forward to seeing how they all look together once each of them have turned into a full colony. They also grow vertically, therefore they're less likely to shade out any corals below them than something which has a horizontal growth pattern. As I said at the start of this series, I've known about this project for a year, therefore I've been collecting corals but purposely not placing them in my display tank, as they've always been destined for this one. Well, today's the day that they finally get to fulfill their destiny. Before they get to do that though, they need to be prepped for arrival. Now, although all the corals going to the big coral system will be quarantined, as these corals will be coming out of my main display, they've essentially been through some form of quarantine already, and although that tank isn't perfect, at least I know what to look out for. As a precaution, every coral will be dipped and where applicable, removed and re-glued to new frag plugs, with glue being my preferred choice when it comes to securing frags in place. Experience has taught me to be cautious with everything with my tanks, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, as a little caution can go a long way in this hobby. Therefore, like the singular hermit crab I originally added, I thought I'd take things slowly by moving over one SPS coral in the form of an Acropora, one LPS coral, which is a Trachophilia, and one soft coral, which are these date night zoas. They are a metaphorical litmus test to ensure the water is ready for a range of different corals. Each of them we placed at the base of the tank to allow them to acclimate to the Red Sea LEDs, and my Acropora responded better than I expected, with the polyps being out within 10 minutes. It's very important to remember that you're far more likely to kill corals with too much light than not enough, so this step for me is extremely important. I left them for a couple of days and everything appears to be doing well, so it's now time to start moving over a much larger quantity and some pretty special pieces, so make sure you tune to the next video, where I'll do a full breakdown of all the corals which this tank will be starting with. This will also set a start date and baseline so that together we can see how this system performs regarding growth. I hope you enjoy watching my video. Please feel free to comment below if you have any questions. If you did enjoy it, why not click that like and subscribe button. Have a good week, and I'll see you next time.